When you think of the Wild West, what comes to mind? Dusty streets, high noon standoffs, and a fearless lawman staring down a gang of ruthless outlaws, and no-name screams. Wild West hero louder than Wyatt Earp. You've probably seen the movies, right? Kurt Russell, Kevin Costner. They made him an absolute legend. But here's the thing about legends. They almost always hide a much darker, much bloodier truth. Wyatt Earp wasn't just a saint walking around with a tin star. He was a complex guy. A gambler, a saloon keeper, a bounty hunter. He was a man who stood for the law, sure. But he was also a man who wasn't afraid to completely cross the line when the law failed him. Today, we are stripping away the Hollywood glamour. We're going back to 1881 to look at just 30 seconds of gunfire that changed American history forever. The legendary shootout at the Corral. And more importantly, we're riding along on the brutal, relentless, blood-soaked Vendetta Ride that followed. Stick around, because the real Wyatt Earp, he is way more fascinating and terrifying than any movie character. Picture this. It's 1879. Tombstone, Arizona. This place wasn't just a town. It was a booming, chaotic powder keg sitting on top of one of the richest silver strikes in American history. And where there's silver, there's money. And where there's money, well, everybody wants a piece. Enter the Earp brothers, Virgil, Wyatt, and Morgan. Now, let's get one thing straight. They didn't ride into Tombstone to save the day. They came to get rich. They bought real estate, invested in mines, and hung out in the saloons. But when the town needed law and order to protect its businesses, Virgil stepped up as the city marshal, with his brothers backing his play. Oh, and they brought a friend. You can't talk about Wyatt Earp without talking about Doc Holliday, a former dentist turned professional gambler. He was battling a terminal case of tuberculosis, which meant he literally had nothing to lose. Doc was fiercely loyal to Wyatt, incredibly deadly with a gun, and had a temper shorter than a lit fuse. But the Earps had a massive problem. While they controlled the town, the surrounding desert was ruled by an organized crime syndicate, simply known as the Cowboys. Think of them like the mafia of the Wild West, led by guys like the Clantons and the McClorys. They rustled cattle, robbed stagecoaches, and basically did whatever they wanted through pure intimidation. You see the setup, right? You've got the Earps representing the businessmen and the law, and the Cowboys representing total unchecked chaos. You can't have two kings in one castle. The death threats started flying. The tension in Tombstone was thick enough to cut with a Bowie knife. It was only a matter of time before someone lit the match. It all came to a head on a freezing Wednesday afternoon. The cowboy leader, Ike Clanton, had been up all night drinking, wandering the streets of Tombstone, heavily armed, and bragging that he was going to kill the Earps on sight. Virgil Earp, the city marshal, decided enough was enough. It was time to disarm the Cowboys. Virgil grabbed Wyatt, Morgan, and Doc Holliday. Doc hid a double-barreled shotgun under his long overcoat. The four of them made that legendary, terrifying walk down Fremont Street. But here is a massive historical plot twist. The shootout at the Corral, it didn't actually happen in the corral. It happened in a narrow, claustrophobic, vacant lot right next to a photography studio. The Earps cornered 5 cowboys in that tiny space. The two groups were standing just 6 feet apart. Think about that, 6 feet. Virgil shouted, "Throw up your hands! I want your guns!" And then, the greatest mystery of the Wild West happened. Somebody drew their weapon. To this day, nobody knows who shot first. Was it a nervous twitch? A deliberate ambush? It didn't matter. The spark had hit the powder keg. It was absolute point-blank carnage. 30 shots fired in 30 seconds. When the thick black powder smoke finally cleared, the scene was incredibly grim. 3 of the cowboys, Frank and Tom McClory, and 19-year-old Billy Clanton, were bleeding out in the dirt. Dead. On the lawman's side, Virgil was shot through the calf. Morgan was hit in the shoulders. Doc Holliday got grazed on the hip. And Wyatt Earp stood right in the middle of a blizzard of bullets and didn't have a single scratch on him. They had won the battle, but the war was just about to start. You'd think surviving the Corral would be the end of it, right? Not even close. The Earps and Doc Holliday were put on trial for murder, but the judge ruled it was self-defense. They walked free, but out in the desert, The surviving Cowboys were absolutely furious. They realized they couldn't beat the Earps in a fair face-to-face fight, so they decided to fight dirty. Late one night in December, Virgil Earp was ambushed from the shadows. Shotgun blasts ripped through the darkness, shattering his left arm and leaving him crippled for life. But the Cowboys weren't done. 3 months later, Morgan Earp was playing a late-night game of billiards. An assassin shot Morgan through the glass door. He died in Wyatt's arms. And right there on that blood-stained floor, something inside Wyatt Earp permanently snapped. The rule book? Tossed out the window. The city badge? Useless. Wyatt went to the U.S. Marshal, got federal jurisdiction, and put together a small, lethal posse, including, of course, Doc Holliday. This wasn't a law enforcement operation anymore. This was the legendary Vendetta Ride. Wyatt wasn't looking to make arrests. He was looking to fill coffins. Their first target? Frank Stillwell, one of the men suspected of killing Morgan. Wyatt cornered him at a train station in Tucson and literally shot him to pieces. But the climax of this bloody road trip happened at a place called Iron Springs. Wyatt's posse accidentally rode right into a cowboy camp, coming face-to-face with the gang's leader, Curly Bill Brocious. Curly Bill fired a shotgun from point-blank range, and somehow miraculously missed. Wyatt didn't flinch. He dismounted, raised his own shotgun, and nearly tore Curly Bill in half. It was a one-man rampage. Over the next few weeks, Wyatt systematically hunted down and executed anyone involved in his brother's death. The Cowboys were broken. The desert was painted in blood. Wyatt had avenged his family. But in the eyes of the law in Arizona, he was no longer a hero. He was a wanted murderer on the run. Wyatt left Arizona in the rearview mirror and never looked back. And the crazy part? For a guy who shot his way through the Wild West on an illegal revenge tour, the law never caught up with him. He became a ghost, slipping across state lines with his longtime companion, Josephine. And his life after Tombstone? Still completely wild. He ran saloons during the freezing Alaskan gold rush, refereed a highly controversial heavyweight boxing match, and eventually ended up in California, hanging out with early Hollywood directors on the sets of silent Western movies. The man who dodged hundreds of bullets at point-blank range didn't die in a dramatic blaze of glory. In the ultimate twist of historical irony, Wyatt Earp passed away peacefully in his bed in Los Angeles in 1929. He was 80 years old. But the second he died, the Hollywood myth-making machine went into overdrive. The dime novels, the movies, the tall tales, they scrubbed away the blood, the gambling, and the moral gray areas, leaving behind only that shiny silver star. So who was the real Wyatt Earp? Was he a righteous hero who cleaned up the worst of the West? Or a cold-blooded vigilante who used a badge to justify his own personal war? The truth is, he was both. He was a survivor in an incredibly brutal era where you either pulled the trigger or you ended up in a pine box. But I want to know what you think. Drop down into the comments right now and tell me. Was Wyatt Earp a hero, a villain, or somewhere in between? If you loved riding along on this dark slice of history, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Stay wild, and I'll see you in the next video.